Let's face it, life happens. As George Eliot says, it is never too late to be what you might have been. Sometimes as fathers, we find ourselves distanced from our children. Maybe it's been years since you've connected, and the thought of rebuilding that relationship seems overwhelming. But let me tell you, it is not too late. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that even later in life, rebuilding the bond with your children can lead to healing on both sides. There are benefits to you and your children. Children who reconcile with their estranged fathers reported greater emotional stability, and fathers, in turn, experience lower levels of anxiety and depression. However, it's not going to be easy. There's no point fooling ourselves and thinking that this is a walk in the park to try and restore and repair broken relationships that sometimes could have laid in ruin for years. Fathers who have been absent often feel as though it's too late to reconnect with their children. However, research from the Journal of Family Therapy shows that even in adulthood, repairing a broken father-child relationship has significant emotional and psychological benefits for both the father and the child. Of course, there will be awkward moments, difficult moments, very, very tough conversations, sometimes even tough moments to handle, because there may be anger, there's a lot of hurt to work through. But the first step is to show up, whether it's a phone call, a letter, an email, a text, or even arriving at the doorstep. The key is to be consistent. Anybody who's going to try and do anything about repairing any relationship will have to make sure that there's consistency in place. So if you are considering something like this, you're a father out there who's watching this and you're thinking, or have been thinking, you need to rebuild your relationship with your kids and reconnect, because you've seen from previous episodes the impacts that has on children, or children who are growing up without fathers in the home. And you think to yourself, Ayanda, I need to do something. Here's something that you just need to consider before making the decision. You're going to have to start by listening. That's not something that we are taught every day how to do as men, but it is imperative on the fathers to listen first, and to listen to the child's perspective, from the perspective of the child that was going through that experience. When the child was disappointed not to have you at home as a father, not having you taking them to sport, helping them with homework, protecting their mom, providing for the family, whatever the case may be, you need to be able to hear that without judging it, without excusing it, or without explaining it away. If you're not prepared to listen, you cannot do this. Or should I say, it'll be very difficult to do what you need to do and to repair that relationship. Of course, you're going to have to acknowledge past mistakes and oversights, and sometimes even bad decisions that you made. But that is going to be crucial to rebuilding the trust that you need to repair the relationship. I always think of an analogy when I think of trust between people. I like to use the analogy of a bank. When you go to a bank, as many of us do, and you open a savings account, you want to make sure that you're depositing money in there, or that there's enough savings in there that are going to be earning you interest and growing over time. But it doesn't just magically appear from nowhere, at least not for most of us. You've got to deposit money, you've got to be consistent and save, and then allow time to take effect and give you interest so that your balance continues to grow. And at some point, you're going to want to make a withdrawal from that bank account. And if you're going to be swiping or at the ATM, the worst of the worst thing is to get that notification, insufficient funds. I borrow a little here from Martin Luther's I Have a Dream speech, but nonetheless, that analogy works very well in that same scenario, because if you're not depositing the time, the efforts, the energy, the wisdom, the knowledge into your kids or into any relationship that'll grow your trust balance with them, in time, a mistake will be made, a bad decision will be made, misunderstandings will happen, and you need to draw from that account. And you want to make sure that there's going to be enough money to cover the cost of that transaction, the trust cost. But you don't want it to be so heavy that there are insufficient funds. that eventually end up breaking that relationship. And so even in your case, if you're going to be wanting to rebuild your relationship with your estranged children, understand that there's trust that's going to have to be rebuilt. Some of the things that I've already told you about, consistency is going to be key in this. Understanding, listening, allowing them to express themselves is part of that way that you are going to be depositing into that account. Because remember, you already have overdrawn that account many, many years ago. You're going to have to rebuild that balance so that it can actually carry that relationship in a healthy way and not having the bank call you every day that you are in arrears. So consistency matters. All the small, consistent efforts that you're going to be making, like your calls, visits, and whatever else you're going to be doing, may for a time seem one-sided. And probably for a long time, it might be months or years, I don't know. It might be never. I hope not, but it's possible. But consistency matters. And you're not going to find out if that relationship will be rebuilt or not if you're not going to be consistent over time. It goes without saying that you'll need to be patient. Also, you're going to need to seek help. Now, please consider for a second that the reason why you're in the situation and being estranged with your children, except for very special circumstances, of course, I understand that it's not always like this, but for the most part, it is going to be because you made a decision or you made a mistake that your children are paying for, and you're going to have to correct that. And part of the reason why that mistake was made, perhaps, and part of why that bad decision was made, perhaps, could be because of poor learnings from your own father, the fact that you weren't raised right. And so seeking therapy for your own things is going to help not only you, but also help your children and their children and their children's children not to pass on the same thing that probably you inherited from your father and wherever else it might have come from your great-grandfather. And so seeking help, professional help, and engaging in therapy would be very, very helpful. And I would dare say that if you're not willing to take that step, and perhaps you are not ready either for this particular step. But we are men of courage, and so I know that you're going to do that. Even better if you can engage in family therapy. There are lots of very good people out there who can help you with this process, because sometimes the conversations need to be facilitated. Sometimes that hurt can come out from the children in a way that actually seems to offend you as a father, offend you as a grown man, or whatever state that you are in. Maybe it solicits pains in your own life that are too deep to discuss, perhaps one-on-one, and there's just too much emotion, too much pain, too much history, and it needs a structure and a facilitated process to help you as a family unit go through that, or between you and your child or children. Because healing sometimes has to be in a form of a reconciliation. Especially this can work if both parties are willing to do the work to work through the past hurts. Consider, for example, a famous musician, humour. He has been very open about his estranged relationship with his son Salema. After many years of being an absent father, I shouldn't call him Hugh, I should say Mr. Masekela or Uncle Hugh, made a difficult choice to reconnect with his son. And as he says, it wasn't easy, but he says that it was one of the most rewarding decisions in his life. Perhaps more important and rewarding than picking up a trumpet to begin with, or all the stages that he has been privileged to perform at across the world, and all the accolades that he's earned. The relationship with his son has been one of the most rewarding. And Salema the son says himself later on that reconnection with his father allowed him to better understand his father, and I would add in brackets, from my experience, understand himself, and of course then heal old wounds. And so you can do the same. So Hugh's story teaches us that the path to reconciliation may and probably will be very bumpy and full of treacherous memories that we do not want to go back to. But it is a path worth taking. It is a worthy cause. Without that, we just perpetuate the histories of hurt and distance and disconnection that we probably have suffered ourselves as older men. And so a few tips for you. I assume that you've already agreed to the top and you say, you know what, Ayanda, I'm ready for this and I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to be consistent. I'm ready to show up and pitch up and do what needs to be done. Here's some tips for you that I hope will be helpful for you. Number one, start small. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. You don't have to plan a trip overseas just yet. Do that if you can. I'm not saying don't, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be that. It's about the small steps to reach out. Could be a text message, WhatsApp, a visit, try something, do something, open that door. Remember, it's a consistency that counts, but don't try to resolve everything in one day or 1 week or 1 month. I've already said this is going to take months and years possibly. So be patient with the process, but start small. As I said, you're going to have to acknowledge your mistakes and your bad decisions. Own it all. Take responsibility. I want to remind you that you are the parent, or you were supposed to be the parent. If you fail to do that in that moment, it's not too late to fix it. But acknowledge the fact that at the time when that relationship went estranged, you were the adult. They were the child. And so you need to be able to take responsibility for that without justifying, excusing it, or diminishing it for your child. Say, I am sorry. Even if you're not necessarily sorry for the event itself, whatever it is that caused whatever separation, maybe it's with the mother or whatever, adult issues. Part of the point that you need to be able to say sorry to is the consequence of that on that child, the hurt, the impact that it's been on that child. You can take responsibility for that. You can say sorry to that. You can say and ask for forgiveness for that. It goes a long way towards a healing for that other person, because you're acknowledging that they are not imagining things, they are not being unreasonable in their expectations and their hopes. It validates their position. Number 3, as I've already alluded, be patient. Healing takes time. Allow your children the time to be able to feel and express and explore and wrestle and understand their own feelings. Sometimes those feelings may come out and be expressed again in the experience of a child to an adult mouth. Some of those words can be very hurtful, I'm pretty sure, which is why it's helpful to have these things facilitated so that somebody can guide you in a healthy manner about how to work through this. Whereas if things are left uncontrolled, sometimes they can be like detonating a bomb. Either we can have a controlled explosion like a bomb squad might do, or there can be an explosion that can cause lots of hurt, and we don't want to do that. But feelings need to be expressed, even the very uncomfortable and difficult ones, about their history and their experiences, their perspectives. I hope that's helpful for you, fathers out there. I hope that you are making the difficult, the courageous, the right decisions to reconnect with your sons, with the daughters. Make the steps. We have far too many people not connected, or disconnected, should I say, not knowing who their fathers are, where their fathers are doing, who seemingly are not caring or cared about by the people who brought them into this world. It's not too late. Make that effort, make that call, be courageous. And if you're a son out there who's listening, it's your turn next week. We'll be talking to you, young men or younger men. We'll be exploring how you can reconnect with your fathers. What can you do? Yes, I said that the father should go first, take responsibility. But one of the things I've learned in time is that as I've grown up myself, I've had to reckon with the apparent failings of my own dad. And I say apparent because I think that all of us would probably have some or other criticism of our own parents of some sort, regardless of how good or bad they might be. But I think that there's something that each and every one of us needs to reconcile with about the way that we are raised, that we are going to need to reckon with. And as soon as we learn how to understand our fathers, or our mothers in that case, where they were coming from, their challenges, their situations, it is just so helpful to helping us understand who we are and where we are going, and settling some things in us. We'll talk more next week. to the sons. I hope that you join us. And again, please like this page, this channel, subscribe, share with your friends, give them a chance also to get hold of this content. Who knows what lives you might be saving, what relationships you might be helping to restore. And again, put on a notification bell so you can know when these things come out. And I'm going to see you in a week's time on Thursday. I look forward to it. Cheers.